In today's world, we are surrounded by contracts, deals, and transactions that promise profit, partnership, and success. But hidden behind many of these business agreements lies a dangerous trap that silently eats away at our wealth, our peace, and our faith, the trap of riba. It comes in different shapes, wrapped in professional language, decorated with the idea of progress and opportunity, but in reality, it is the same poison that has destroyed societies, corrupted hearts, and angered Allah since the beginning of trade itself. When the Prophet, peace be upon him, warned us about riba, it wasn't just a warning about money, it was a warning about morality, fairness, and spiritual safety, because riba doesn't just affect our finances, it affects our soul. It turns business from a means of helping people into a means of exploiting them. It transforms trade, which should be built on trust, into a tool of oppression, and when oppression becomes normal, corruption spreads through the entire society. Let's think about this deeply. A Muslim businessman or woman today might sign a contract thinking they are entering a fair deal, but without realizing, there may be hidden clauses that contain interest, penalties, or conditions that make the agreement unjust. A simple word like markup, late payment fee, or fixed return might sound harmless, but when it guarantees profit regardless of loss or effort, it becomes riba. The danger of riba is that it often hides behind fine print. It's dressed up in modern terms, buried under paperwork, and justified with complex logic, yet no matter how it's presented, its reality remains the same. It's a form of injustice. Islam calls us to a higher standard of business built on fairness, honesty, and compassion. A true Muslim entrepreneur does not chase profit at the expense of another person's hardship. They do not take advantage of someone's need to earn more. They see their business as a form of worship, not a battlefield. That's what makes Islamic business so powerful and pure. It connects the marketplace with the mosque and the office with the heart. In a riba-based contract, one side always wins and the other side always loses. That imbalance destroys the blessing in both sides. One may seem to gain money, but they lose peace. The other may pay back more than they borrowed, but they lose dignity. That's not trade, that's exploitation. Islam came to remove that kind of injustice. The Prophet taught us that a blessed business is one where both parties are satisfied, where no one is cheated, and where the transaction brings benefit to all, not harm to one. But today, when we look around, we find these traps everywhere, from car leases to credit purchases, from home loans to partnership agreements, even in corporate contracts that claim to be interest free. There are often hidden conditions that mimic the same nature of riba. And many Muslims fall into it, not out of rebellion, but out of ignorance or pressure. They don't realize that the small clause they overlooked might be enough to corrupt the purity of their earnings. That's why awareness is a form of protection. When we understand what riba truly means, we start to see how deeply it can affect our lives. Riba is not just about paying or charging interest, it's about creating a system where wealth becomes a tool of control, not compassion. It's when money grows from money without effort, without risk, without contribution to society. Islam wants us to earn through productivity, through sharing risk, and through adding value to the community. Riba removes all that and replaces it with greed. Imagine a society built on riba-free business. People would invest not to trap others in debt, but to empower them. Partnerships would be built on trust, not on hidden clauses. Customers would buy what they can afford, not what they are pushed to owe. And wealth would circulate fairly, not gather in the hands of the few. That's the society Islam envisions, one that uplifts, not one that enslaves. The scary part is that riba doesn't show its effect immediately. It's like a disease that spreads quietly. At first, it seems to make life easier. You can buy now, pay later, and live comfortably. But as time passes, you realize that your peace is gone. You are trapped in cycles of debt, anxiety, and restlessness. Families begin to fight over repayments. Businesses start collapsing under interest burdens. Nations lose independence because of global debts. And what began as just a small fee becomes a heavy chain that no one can break. When you see the world today, with nations drowning in debt and individuals losing homes because of riba-based systems, it's clear that the wisdom of Islam is not just religious, it's economic and universal. Islam's prohibition of riba is a mercy, a protection from a system that destroys compassion. It's not a restriction, it's liberation. It frees us from being slaves to money. It reminds us that wealth is a trust from Allah, not a weapon against others. The Prophet's vision was a world where trade built bridges, not barriers, where business brought people closer, not divided them through greed, where money served humanity, not the other way around. But we can only achieve that world if we return to the principles of honesty, transparency, and fairness in our contracts. A Muslim's signature should be a promise of integrity, not a loophole for exploitation. So many Muslims today struggle to find halal income in a world flooded with interest-based systems. But remember, Allah sees your effort. Every time you walk away from a deal that involves riba, even if it costs you worldly profit, you earn something much greater, the pleasure of Allah and peace in your heart. What's the use of a huge bank balance if your heart is empty of barakah? What's the use of a big company if it's built on something that displeases your Creator? We must start by purifying our intentions. Before signing any contract, ask yourself, is this deal just? Is this arrangement beneficial to both sides? Would I be happy if the same terms were applied to me? If not, then it's not a deal worth taking, because the believer measures success not by how much they earn, but by how they earn it. Business in Islam is an act of worship. It's an opportunity to reflect mercy, fairness, and sincerity. Every transaction becomes a test of your faith. When you choose the halal way, even if it's harder, Allah promises to replace what you lose with something far greater. Maybe not immediately in your bank account, but definitely in your heart, your family, and your akhirah. We must educate ourselves and our communities about these traps. Encourage Muslim entrepreneurs to consult scholars before drafting business contracts. Support Islamic finance institutions that are transparent and ethical. Teach our youth that not every modern system is progress. True progress is when faith and fairness walk together. The world doesn't need more billionaires. It needs more believers who do business with conscience. It needs Muslims who care more about justice than luxury, about blessings more than numbers, and about people more than profit. Because the real richness is not in your assets, but in your integrity. Let's be the generation that rebuilds trust in trade. Let's create a future where Muslims lead the world not in consumption, but in compassion. Let's purify our wealth, our contracts, and our intentions until every signature we make reflects our submission to Allah alone. And when we do that, we will not just build successful businesses, we will build a successful ummah. Riba is one of the most dangerous traps a believer can fall into, not because it always appears evil, but because it hides behind the mask of convenience and progress. It doesn't announce itself with loud warnings. Instead, it disguises itself in polite terms, professional contracts, and harmless-looking deals. You see it in the agreements people sign without thinking twice, in the offers that look like shortcuts to success, and in the loans that promise comfort but deliver spiritual emptiness. That is how riba works. It doesn't attack your faith directly. It slowly weakens it, bit by bit, until your heart begins to accept what it once knew was wrong. In every era, people have tried to rename riba to make it seem acceptable. They call it interest, markup, service fee, convenience cost, or adjustment rate, but changing the label doesn't change its reality. It remains the same poison, no matter how it's packaged. It's like covering a deadly thorn with a flower. It still wounds you the same. The tragedy of our time is that we have normalized these hidden traps so deeply that many Muslims don't even question them anymore. We sign, we agree, we commit. And then we wonder why peace leaves our homes, why our businesses struggle, and why our hearts feel heavy despite worldly success. Riba doesn't just affect your wallet, it affects your soul. It eats away at your barakah, that unseen blessing that turns little into plenty. You may earn thousands, but you'll never feel content. You may buy luxuries, but you'll never find peace. Because barakah doesn't live where riba lives. You can't fill your heart with contentment while feeding your income from something that displeases your Creator. That's why Islam forbids it with such emphasis, not to make life harder, but to protect your soul from being enslaved by greed and debt. Think about the wisdom behind it. Riba promises easy profit, effortless gain, and guaranteed return, but in reality it makes you dependent, restless, and hollow. You start chasing numbers instead of purpose, profit instead of justice. You stop asking, "Is this fair?" and start asking, "How much will I make?" You forget that true business in Islam is about serving, not taking advantage. The Prophet taught that the best of people are those who deal with honesty and kindness. When you take riba out of your life, you make room for sincerity, for trust, and for divine help. Many people don't fall into riba out of arrogance, they fall because it's hidden so cleverly. The contracts look legitimate. The professionals use fancy words. The system is built to make you feel like you're doing something normal, but deep inside, your conscience whispers that something feels wrong. That discomfort is your soul reminding you that Allah made you for better. He made you to earn through effort, not exploitation, to grow your wealth with integrity, not shortcuts, to succeed with His blessing, not through forbidden means. When you earn halal, your money has a light in it. It feeds your family with peace, it supports your life with dignity, and it becomes a means of reward in the hereafter. But when riba enters your earnings, it brings with it anxiety, greed, and imbalance. You may think it's small, just a few dollars of interest, a small penalty clause, but even a drop of poison can ruin a pure drink. That's how spiritual toxins work. They don't always destroy suddenly, they corrupt slowly until you no longer taste the difference between what's pure and what's not. That's why the believer must stay alert. We can't just trust that every contract labeled Islamic is truly Islamic. We have to educate ourselves, consult trustworthy scholars, and read carefully. We must be brave enough to walk away from deals that seem profitable but feel wrong. Because the one who leaves something haram for the sake of Allah never loses. Allah replaces what you leave with something far better, often in ways you could never imagine. It might not be in numbers, but it will be in peace, health, and happiness. In business, temptation is everywhere. People will say, "Everyone does it, it's just business," or "You can't survive without it." But remember, the believer doesn't measure success by what everyone does. We measure success by what pleases Allah. We believe that provision is written, that blessings come from obedience, and that every free decision brings you closer to divine mercy. You might lose a deal, but you gain something far greater, purity of wealth and peace of mind. When you free your business from riba, you free your heart from fear. You stop depending on systems built on greed, and you start depending on Allah. That's real financial freedom, not being owned by debts, not being crushed by anxiety, but living with the confidence that what you have is pure and blessed. The world might see it as a small step, but in the sight of Allah, it's a giant leap toward righteousness. So next time you're offered a contract that feels too easy, too profitable, or too good to be true, pause, read, reflect, ask yourself, is this fair? Does it please Allah? Would I sign this deal if I knew my Creator was the witness? If your heart hesitates, that hesitation is guidance, that hesitation is mercy. Don't silence it for the sake of comfort or convenience, because no worldly gain is worth losing Allah's favor. True success is not found in clever contracts, but in clean hearts. The one who fears falling into riba is more successful in the eyes of Allah than the one who earns millions through it, because the goal of business in Islam isn't just profit, it's purification. It's not just about transactions, it's about transformation. When your wealth is pure, your prayers have power. When your income is clean, your family feels peace. And when your business is built on justice, Allah builds His mercy upon it. So protect yourself from the hidden traps. Don't let modern words blind you to ancient truths. Riba may be disguised as opportunity, but it remains a chain that drags down individuals, families, and nations. Choose purity over profit, fairness over greed, and Allah over everything. Because in the end, a single deal done with sincerity will bring you more blessing than 1,000 contracts built on riba. And that is the kind of wealth that never fades. There is no true success in business if it comes at the cost of losing your peace, your faith, and your connection with Allah. What looks like profit in numbers can sometimes be loss in the sight of your Creator. The truth is, when money grows through dishonest means or through riba, it looks big on paper but feels small in the heart. You can have a bank full of wealth yet sleep with a restless mind. You can have every luxury in your hands yet feel an emptiness inside your soul. That is the difference between money with barakah and money without it. The believer understands that wealth is not measured by digits, but by peace, gratitude, and the blessing that flows from it. Many people today run after income without asking where it comes from. They chase higher salaries, bigger deals, and quicker profits, thinking success is in accumulation. But Islam teaches us something far more meaningful. It is not about how much you earn. It is about how you earn it. When your money is pure, it feeds your heart as well as your body. It brings calmness in your home, smiles to your children, and contentment to your soul. But when your earnings come from haram, especially through riba, it turns every gain into a burden. What you thought would bring relief ends up bringing anxiety. What you hoped would create comfort instead brings arguments and regret. That is the spiritual reality of wealth tainted by riba. A small amount earned with honesty and hard work carries a fragrance that fills the house with serenity. That income may not buy everything you want, but it will surely provide everything you need. It will be enough, because Allah puts barakah in it, a divine blessing that multiplies your satisfaction, stretches your resources, and fills your heart with gratitude. When you compare that to wealth gained through riba or deception, you see the difference immediately. The latter may buy abundance, but it cannot buy peace. You might have a beautiful house, but no harmony inside it. You might have wealth, but lose your sleep. You might wear gold, but carry guilt. That is not success. That is slavery in disguise. Riba and dishonesty take away more than they give. They promise gain, but deliver loss. They seem like shortcuts to wealth, but end up being shortcuts to destruction, because every act of disobedience carries a consequence, and when money enters your home through the wrong door, it brings with it unseen hardship. You will find that unexpected expenses arise, relationships strain, health declines, or happiness disappears. That is the loss of barakah, the quiet punishment of ignoring Allah's guidance. But when you earn with sincerity and purity, even the smallest earnings feel abundant. You thank Allah for what you have, and He increases you in blessings. Halal wealth brings dignity. It frees you from fear because you know your income is clean. You can stand before Allah with confidence and say, I tried my best to stay truthful, to stay fair, to stay within your limits. That assurance is worth more than any luxury in the world. And that is why the Prophet emphasized honesty and fairness in business, because those who deal justly will be raised with the righteous on the day of judgment. Imagine standing before your Creator, not ashamed of your transactions, but proud that you chose honesty even when it was hard. That is real success. We must remind ourselves that every contract, every deal, every sale is a test. Allah is watching not only what you earn, but how you earn it. The hands that take haram income will tremble on the day of judgment. The tongue that signs a dishonest deal will have to answer for it. And the wealth that was mixed with riba will not protect you, it will testify against you. But the person who earns little with integrity will find that their wealth becomes light for them on that day, not a burden. Halal business is not just a financial practice, it is spiritual training. It teaches you patience when profit is slow, gratitude when gain is small, and humility when success comes. It keeps your heart soft and your intentions sincere. It reminds you that you are not competing with people, you are seeking the pleasure of Allah. When that becomes your goal, you stop cutting corners, you stop chasing shortcuts, and you stop fearing loss. Because you know that whatever is written for you will reach you, and whatever is not, no riba system or clever contract can bring it to you. There are people who have lived their entire lives with modest income, yet they sleep peacefully, smile sincerely, and die content, and there are others who swim in wealth, yet live with constant worry and fear. The difference is not in what they own, it is in the purity of their earnings. One has barakah, a blessing that multiplies happiness, and the other has riba, which multiplies problems. So, choose wisely. Every decision you make in business is not just about profit, it is about your soul. Purify your contracts, read every condition carefully, avoid deals that guarantee fixed returns or place one side at risk while the other side rests easy. Seek fairness because Allah loves those who are just. Clean your intentions. Don't enter business just to grow rich. Enter it to serve, to benefit others, and to earn through halal means. When your heart is sincere, Allah will guide you to the right opportunities and protect you from hidden traps. There is a deep sense of peace that comes when you know that every penny you spend, every meal you eat, every dress you buy, and every gift you give is pure. You feel proud not of your wealth, but of your obedience. You realize that barakah makes a little feel like plenty, and disobedience makes plenty feel like nothing. That's why the believer doesn't envy those who gain wealth through riba. They might seem successful now, but the peace you carry in your heart is a blessing they cannot buy. So remember, success is not defined by how much you accumulate, but by how much you purify. It's not the value of your property, but the cleanliness of your income that determines your true worth. When your earnings are pure, your heart becomes light, your prayers are answered faster, your family feels more united, and every hardship you face becomes easier because Allah's help surrounds those who live honestly. Never let greed push you into what Allah has forbidden. If you have to choose between halal hardship and haram comfort, always choose the path that keeps your soul clean, because what you gain from obedience lasts forever, and what you gain from sin fades faster than you think. The joy of wealth earned through deception dies quickly, but the peace of halal income lives forever. When your earnings are pure, your hands give more, your heart loves more, and your life carries light. That is the kind of success that follows you into the grave and beyond. So live with integrity, trade with sincerity, and work with faith. Let every transaction be a reflection of your trust in Allah. When you put your faith above your profit, Allah will put barakah in your profit beyond what you could imagine. And when your wealth is pure, your heart will rest in peace, and every blessing in your life will carry the sweetness of sincerity. That is the wealth that truly enriches not the numbers in your account, but the peace in your soul.